She smirked from the bench, gavel in hand, as if she'd already won. The room didn't know her verdict would unravel a nation. In the sweltering summer of 2025, the small town of Fairview, Alabama, buzzed with whispers about a trial that had split the community like a lightning strike. 17-year-old Malik Carter, a Black honors student with dreams of becoming an engineer, sat in the defendant's chair, his wrists cuffed, his eyes fixed on the floor. The charge? Armed robbery of a local convenience store, a crime he swore he didn't commit. The evidence? A grainy security camera still and the word of a single witness. A white store clerk who claimed Malik looked like the guy. The judge, Eleanor Hargrove, presided with an air of unshakable authority, her reputation for harsh rulings on Black defendants preceding her like a shadow. Malik's family filled the front row of the courtroom. His mother, Angela, clutched a tissue, her face etched with worry but fierce with resolve. His older brother, James Carter, the newly appointed U.S. Attorney General, sat beside her, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the worn wooden pews. James had flown in from D.C. the moment he heard of Malik's arrest, his legal mind already dissecting the case. He knew Fairview's Historia town, where racial bias ran deep, where justice often bent to the will of those in power. He'd grown up here, escaped its clutches, and now he was back, not as a local boy but as a force of reckoning. The trial began with a parade of inconsistencies. The prosecution's case hinged on the clerk's testimony, but the man fumbled under cross-examination, unable to recall key details. The security footage was so pixelated it could have been anyone, yet Judge Hargrove allowed it as damning evidence. Malik's public defender, a young lawyer named Sarah Nguyen, fought valiantly but was outmatched by the prosecution's theatrics and Hargrove's clear bias. When Sarah objected to leading questions, Hargrove snapped, "Sit down, Ms. Nguyen, or I'll hold you in contempt." The courtroom gasped, but Malik's eyes stayed down, his silence a shield against the storm. Outside, Fairview was a powder keg. Protesters gathered daily, holding signs that read, "Justice for Malik" and "End Racial Profiling." Local news outlets spun conflicting narratives. Some painted Malik as a thug, others as a victim of a rigged system. Social media amplified the divide, with hashtags like Free Malik trending alongside vitriolic posts defending Hargrove's tough on crime stance. The tension seeped into the courtroom, where every glance, every whispered comment, felt like a spark waiting to ignite. As the trial progressed, Hargrove's prejudice became impossible to ignore. She sustained every prosecution objection while dismissing Sarah's without a second thought. When Malik took the stand, his voice steady as he recounted his alibi had been at a robotics club meeting, verified by his teacher and classmates. Hargrove cut him off. "I've heard enough," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "Your story doesn't add up, young man." James clenched his jaw, his hands balled into fists. He'd seen this script before. A black kid railroaded, a judge playing God. The turning point came on the fifth day. Sarah uncovered a bombshell. The store clerk had a history of lying under oath in another case, and the police had ignored Malik's alibi witnesses. She presented this to the court, her voice trembling with urgency. "Your Honor, this evidence proves my client's innocence and exposes a pattern of misconduct." Hargrove's face reddened. "This is irrelevant," she barked, banging her gavel. "Move on, or I'll declare a mistrial." The courtroom erupted. Spectators shouted. Reporters scribbled furiously, and Angela stood, tears streaming, yelling, "You can't do this to my son." James rose slowly, his presence commanding silence. "Your Honor," he said, his voice low but razor-sharp, "you're treading on dangerous ground." Hargrove's eyes narrowed. "You're out of line, Mr. Carter." This is my courtroom. James stepped forward, undeterred. And this is my brother. You've suppressed evidence, ignored procedure, and shown clear bias. I'm not just his brother, I am the U.S. Attorney General, and I'm calling in the Justice Department. The room froze. Hargrove's gavel hovered, her authority crumbling under the weight of his words. The stakes skyrocketed. James's declaration wasn't just a threat, it was a promise. He'd already contacted federal investigators who were digging into Hargrove's record. Rumors swirled that she'd taken bribes to fast-track convictions, particularly of black defendants. The media caught wind, and by evening, national outlets were running headlines. Alabama judge accused of framing black teen. Protesters swelled outside, their chants echoing through Fairview's streets. Inside the Carter home, Angela prayed, while Malik, out on bail thanks to James's influence, sat quietly, haunted by the trial's toll. Hargrove doubled down. She issued a gag order, barred Sarah from introducing new evidence, and set a verdict date for the next day. This case is airtight, she declared, but her voice wavered. James worked through the night, coordinating with his team in D.C. They uncovered a paper trail. Hargrove had pressured the police to prioritize Malik's arrest, ignoring leads on other suspects. Worse, the clerk admitted to friends he'd lied for a payout. James had the ammunition, but time was running out. The final day dawned with Fairview on edge. The courtroom was a pressure cooker, every seat filled, cameras rolling. Malik stood tall, his eyes now meeting Hargrove's. Sarah delivered a searing closing argument, laying bare the case's flaws. "This isn't justice," she said. "This is a vendetta." The prosecution fumbled, their narrative unraveling. Then James took the floor, not as a lawyer but as a brother. "My brother is innocent," he said, his voice breaking. "And this system, your system, Judge Hargrove, has failed him. But it won't win today." Hargrove's verdict was swift. Guilty. The room exploded. Angela collapsed, sobbing, as deputies moved to cuff Malik. But James raised a hand, his phone already buzzing with a federal injunction. "Not so fast," he said. "The Justice Department is taking over." Hargrove's face drained of color as U.S. Marshals entered, serving her with papers. The charges? Judicial misconduct, evidence tampering, and civil rights violations. The crowd roared, some cheering, others hurling insults at Hargrove. In the aftermath, Malik was released, his record expunged. Hargrove faced a federal investigation, her career in ruins. Fairview began to reckon with its demons, spurred by James's crusade for reform. Malik, though scarred, returned to school, his dreams intact. At a community vigil, he spoke for the first time since the trial. "I'm not just a kid who got lucky," he said. "I'm proof we can fight back." His words, simple but profound, echoed beyond Fairview, a testament to resilience and the power of truth. The fallout from Judge Hargrove's downfall sent shockwaves through Fairview, a town unaccustomed to such public reckoning. Malik Carter, now free, walked out of the courthouse into a sea of supporters, their cheers a stark contrast to the jeers he'd faced weeks earlier. Camera flashes lit up his face, capturing a young man who'd endured a nightmare but stood unbroken. His mother, Angela, clung to his arm, her tears now ones of relief. James, ever the stoic, scanned the crowd, knowing this victory was only the beginning. The system that had nearly crushed his brother still loomed large, and he was far from done. In the days that followed, Fairview became a battleground of ideas. The national spotlight burned bright, with pundits dissecting Hargrove's misconduct and the broader issue of racial bias in the courts. Local leaders scrambled to respond. The mayor issued a statement promising reforms, but it rang hollow to those who'd seen decades of inaction. Community organizers, emboldened by Malik's case, held town halls, demanding accountability. At one such meeting, a retired teacher named Mrs. Clara stood up, her voice trembling. "How many Maliks have we lost to judges like Hargrove?" she asked. The room fell silent, her question a mirror to Fairview's conscience. Malik, meanwhile, struggled to reclaim normalcy. Returning to Fairview High felt like stepping into a different world. Classmates who'd once whispered about his arrest now approached him with awkward apologies or hero worship. His robotics club teacher, Mr. Daniels, welcomed him back with a bear hug, saying, "We never doubted you, kid." But the weight of the trial lingered. Nightmares woke Malik at 3 a.m., images of Hargrove's gavel haunting him. He confided in Angela, who urged him to see a counselor. "You're strong, baby," she said. "But even the strong need help." Malik nodded, though pride made him hesitate. James, back in D.C., launched a federal probe into Alabama's judicial system. His team uncovered a pattern. Hargrove wasn't an outlier. Dozens of judges across the state had disproportionately harsh records against black defendants. The findings, leaked to the press, sparked outrage. Protests spread to Montgomery and Birmingham, with marchers chanting Malik's name. Social media exploded, with Justice for All trending globally. Yet backlash brewed. Hargrove's supporters, mostly older, white residents of Fairview, rallied, claiming she was framed by outsiders like James. They hung signs reading, "Save our judge," ignoring the evidence piling up against her. Hargrove, stripped of her robe, faced a federal indictment. The charges were damning. Not only had she tampered with Malik's case, but she'd colluded with local police to target black youth, pocketing kickbacks from private detention centers. At her arraignment, she sat stone-faced, her once imposing presence diminished. Reporters swarmed, one shouting, "Do you regret what you did to Malik Carter?" Hargrove's lips tightened, but she said nothing. Her silence spoke volumes, a tacit admission of guilt that fueled public fury. Back in Fairview, Sarah Nguyen became an unlikely hero. The young public defender, who'd fought tooth and nail for Malik, was flooded with job offers from prestigious firms. She turned them down, choosing to stay in Alabama. "This is where the fight is," she told a local reporter. Sarah opened a legal clinic in Fairview, offering free representation to those who couldn't afford it. Her first client was a black teenager named Deshaun, accused of shoplifting. When Sarah won his case, citing police misconduct, the victory felt like a ripple from Malik's triumph. Malik's story inspired others to speak out. At a school assembly, a girl named Tasha shared how she'd been profiled by police for looking suspicious while walking home. Her voice shook, but she pressed on, saying, "If Malik can fight a judge, we can fight too." The auditorium erupted in applause. Teachers began incorporating discussions of systemic racism into their lessons, a move that drew both praise and ire. Some parents complained, calling it divisive. Others, like Angela, volunteered to speak, sharing Malik's story as a call to action. The Carter family, though relieved, faced new challenges. James's high-profile role drew threats from Hargrove's supporters, forcing him to hire security. Angela worried constantly, her faith tested by the hatred directed at her sons. Malik, sensing her strain, tried to lighten the mood, joking about his newfound celebrity status. One evening, as they sat on their porch, Angela looked at him, her eyes soft. "You're my hero, you know that?" Malik shrugged, embarrassed. James did the heavy lifting. Angela shook her head. "You survived, Malik. That's enough." As months passed, Fairview began to change, however slowly. The police chief, under pressure, implemented body cameras and bias training, though skeptics doubted their impact. A new judge, a black woman named Lena Thompson, took Hargrove's place, earning cautious optimism from the community. At her first hearing, she quoted Dr. King, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." The words, simple yet powerful, hung in the air, a reminder of the work ahead. Malik, now a senior, threw himself into his studies. He won a scholarship to MIT, his dream of becoming an engineer closer than ever. At the robotics club, he designed a drone that could deliver supplies to disaster zones, earning national recognition. When asked about his inspiration, he said, "I want to build things that help people, not tear them down." His words, broadcast on CNN, resonated, a testament to his resilience. James, meanwhile, pushed for national reform. He testified before Congress, using Malik's case to advocate for stricter oversight of judges and mandatory sentencing reviews. His speech, raw and unflinching, went viral. "My brother was almost another statistic," he said. "How many more must we lose before we act?" Lawmakers, moved or perhaps shamed, passed a bill strengthening protections against judicial misconduct. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Hargrove's trial, held in Montgomery, was a spectacle. Prosecutors presented a mountain of evidence. Emails, bank records, even recorded calls where she bragged about teaching those kids a lesson. The defense floundered, their arguments crumbling under scrutiny. When the guilty verdict came, the courtroom cheered. Hargrove was sentenced to 15 years, her legacy reduced to a cautionary tale. Outside, protesters celebrated, but Malik, watching the news at home, felt no joy. "She's gone," he told Angela. But the system's still broken. The Carters marked the one-year anniversary of Malik's exoneration with a quiet dinner. Angela cooked Malik's favorite, fried chicken and collards, while James flew in from D.C. They laughed, reminisced, and for a moment, set aside the weight of the past. As they cleared the table, James pulled Malik aside. "I'm proud of you," he said. "You're stronger than I'll ever be." Malik smiled, a rare, unguarded moment. "We're a team, right?" James nodded. "Always." Fairview, though scarred, began to heal. Community leaders formed a coalition to monitor the courts, ensuring no judge could wield unchecked power again. Malik spoke at their first meeting, his voice steady. "I'm not special," he said. "I'm just one kid who got a chance to fight. Let's make sure everyone gets that chance." The crowd stood, their applause a promise to keep going. As Malik prepared for college, he reflected on his journey. The trial had changed him, stripping away his innocence but igniting a fire within. He started a blog, sharing stories of others who'd faced injustice, amplifying their voices. His first post, titled "Why We Fight," went viral, drawing messages from across the globe. One, from a teenager in Chicago, read, "You gave me hope." Malik teared up, realizing his story was no longer just his own. The ripples of Malik's case reached beyond Fairview. Other towns, inspired, began scrutinizing their own courts. Activists cited his story in campaigns for reform, from ending cash bail to banning private prisons. James, now a leading voice for change, credited Malik. "He's the spark," he told a reporter. "I'm just fanning the flames." On graduation day, Malik walked across the stage, his family cheering louder than anyone. He glanced at the crowd, spotting Sarah, Mrs. Clara, and even Judge Thompson, all smiling. In his valedictorian speech, he spoke of justice not as an ideal but as a struggle. "We don't wait for fairness," he said. "We build it." The words lingered, a challenge to his peers and a beacon for the future. As summer faded, Malik packed for MIT, his room a mix of robotics gear and mementos from the trial. Angela hugged him tightly, whispering, "You're my miracle." James drove him to the airport, their conversation light but laced with pride. At the gate, Malik turned to his brother. "We did good, didn't we?" James grinned. "We're just getting started." Fairview's story, like Malik's, remains unfinished. The town still grapples with its past, its people divided yet searching for common ground. Malik's case exposed truths too long ignored, forcing a reckoning that continues to unfold. What do you believe? Does justice prevail when one voice rises, or does it demand a chorus? Share your thoughts. Where does right end and wrong begin?